And go.
Hi, gang. We are here today, back in my studio, and I apologize last week. We weren't live. We did a recording along the Truckee River while I was doing my large-scale workshop, which was a heck of a lot of fun. And because I think I did a large scale, I got super ambitious today. I've never, ever tried this. That's why I wrote this up here. It's a 36 by 24. It's exactly twice the size that I've been doing. Generally, I've been doing this size. So you can see the scale is quite a bit larger, which means primarily I've got to lay out a lot more paint and work with pretty good sized brushes. So I just thought I'd write that up there for fun. And the image I'm going to do today is something that I photographed while we were on the island of Elba in Italy. And I love doing these bougainvilleas. I like this because of the light effect. So I'm going to actually start with a pretty large, it's a good size rosemary, probably a number 8 filbert here. And just to get a very quick approximation down. The bottom of this is probably about here. And I'm going to work the shape. Goes up here, here. Up in here, we have a lot of dizziness. It intersects somewhere near the center. So I'm moving a little bit to the right of center. Comes over here. I'm going to bring it over even further. We have the beam from a doorway sits about 2/3 of the way up. So we're going to kind of sketch that in. And this gives me a nice vertical to look for. And if we look at it, it's probably about 1/4 of the way. So we're going to take that down and work it about here. This is probably going to be a little lower now that I look at it. Okay. Now we're going to look for the one thing that I think is kind of important is this very organic shape that comes down from here down about, I'm just guessing, down about here, over, down. Beautiful organic movement of the vine from this bougainvillea, which goes literally off the page. We have this column, which is going to sit right here. And we have the stairs, which is just adding another problem for me, but what the heck, let's deal with it. So this is a big challenge for me. I have never tried anything this scale in 90 minutes. So let's see if I can pull it off. Okay. I'm here to fail for you if that happens. In the meantime, you really don't gain anything if you don't try. That's kind of my kind of motto. Give it a shot. I mean, it'll get done. I just don't know how proud I will be of it. Let's put it that way. Okay. We got a little bit of an interruption in here. It's a rough line. And there's part of a building back here that will kind of indicate where it is. Because I kind of want to interrupt that a little bit more than it's showing. It's appearing to be like this. I'm going to move this down and over. A little piece of a window coming behind about here. There's a little perspective involved because we're looking up at that window. And the corner, this is going to overlap. I'm going to make it overlap this a little bit more. The side of the building goes back in space. And again, once again, a little perspective here, right? So let's get that. That's even more severe. And there's a window back here. And that's all I'm going to do for right now. Maybe I'll indicate approximately where the shadow occurs. Kind of in here, up here, down, kind of like this. All right. So let's get started. Big brush. This time I'm using like a number 2 or a 2-inch brush. I've got to get some tone down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with these kind of semi-darks, the darks, because those are my anchors, so to speak. For my palette, I laid out white, Naples yellow, yellow ochre, a cadmium orange or a cadmium yellow deep hue, alizarin crimson. I've also added 3 or 4 additional reds because of the bougainvillea. I've got a couple of colors that I picked up in Italy, Classico colors, a pink, a deep madder, and another color. I don't even know what it is because I painted over the tube. I can't even tell. I also have ultramarine blue. I have the light radiant blue. I don't need that, I don't think. I'm going to need a little bit of green and asphaltum. This door, I don't like it in the green. I'm going to keep it kind of more like it's a wooden door, just because I don't think it's attractive. And I remember when I was there, I didn't think it was attractive. So let's start with the alizarin crimson, and I'll throw a little green in it to mute it, because I want a nice, rich, dark red, and maybe a hint of Naples yellow, just to make it a little bit more opaque. But I don't want it dark. And we're going to start in, yeah, too dark. That was my problem. So let's start in, there we go, that feels better. I mixed some of this pink into it. We got to just kind of get some underlying tones in. They may be right, they may be wrong, but I've got to put something in. I could sit and second guess that color all day as to whether I'm right or whether, but it'll be a foundation, something I can build off of. All right. Down in here, works up here. I'd rather overpaint too much of this area than I would just leave it. So if I can overpaint it a little bit more than is necessary, I'll come over it. As it moves down, it gets deeper. We still get this beautiful kind of red colors. Adding a little bit more. I'm just kind of remixing reds back into it if I feel it's not strong enough. There's kind of a red. And I'm a little too bright, I know for a fact. So I'm going to throw a little bit of ultramarine into it. There we go.
I'm going to try to secure that canvas a little bit. Somehow? No? Okay.
Take it on. Canvas is bouncing around a little bit, and I can secure the top, but it's going to, no, I'm not even going to try.
Okay.
I'm not even going to try it. It's going to take me too long to do it. I have to go behind the canvas. There's a little bit of color down here. Now let's get some of the darks in, some of these. Okay, so for that, I'm going to use the asphaltum that tends to feel a little bit warm. Mix it right back into the color I was using, and I'm going to take a look at it. It's too dry. It's interesting, when I was painting up along the Truckee River, doing some large scale stuff, I knocked over my sunflower oil. So I'm out of sunflower oil. I've got to get to the art supply store and get some more.
I didn't hear about
So I'm just using a little bit of, I think this is a water soluble oil that I'm using, which works fine. It's just, I'm not used to the feel of it. So, but it'll work. That's got to come down about here. Coverage. Because I'm working on such a large canvas, it's very important that I get a lot of coverage quickly. I'm gonna secure the top. Excuse me for one moment. That feels better. Well, the canvas won't wobble around as much. Okay, let's keep going. Nice dark back in here. I can put a little bit of, I mix sometimes blues, sometimes greens back into this if it's too warm, just to kind of change it up a little bit. Like now I'm throwing sap green into it a little bit, and we're just kind of putting it in where it feels like it belongs. I can see it up in here. Man, I wish I was taller. I could actually reach that. That's basically going to be where that window goes. So you can see with this brush, I can get stuff in there quite quickly, which is kind of one of the necessities of working at a very large scale. I think what happened is this last week, when I was doing these 24 by 48 canvases on location, I really got into this feeling of wanting to do large. So I immediately said to myself, let's try a really large one for the demonstration and see if I can pull it off. Going to pull a little bit of Naples yellow light into it just because, and it's going kind of green on me because I got a lot of green there. So I'm mixing right into the same color, by the way, you guys. Well, now that's a little too warm. I was probably better off with a little bit of a green. So let's try this. It's a little lighter than I want. Let's try it again. So we're going to live with, throw a little more blue into it, and that's what I'm going to live with. A little bit of that red came out. I love these little accidental things that happen. Sometimes it just adds something to it. Sometimes it doesn't, and you make those decisions as you progress. So if you look to the right of that, as long as I'm right there, if I add ochre to it, I can probably paint in that part. And it's really kind of, this nice flat brush basically depicts pretty accurately the shapes that I want. Again, everyone, these things at this scale become like a giant study, and it's a great thing to practice, you know. And if you don't like it when you're done, you got a canvas and you just kind of stain over it, and pretty soon you got a canvas you can work back into. If you like it, you can actually go back and refine it if you want. I think people have asked many times. I generally don't do that. And I was even asked on location by some of the attendees if I ever do that. I really don't. I kind of lose. You know what it is? I tend to believe I lose my enthusiasm. I don't know any other reason on the piece, and I kind of also lose the integrity of the plein air experience. I do try to paint, whether I'm painting finished paintings in a studio or whether I'm painting paintings plein air. I do try and paint pretty much the same way. The difference is I spend a lot more time in the evaluation process. That's the biggest difference. And I will spend a little bit more time in color mixing. I'm going to take this one brush I was drawing with, and I want to kind of get the stairs where they're going to go. They're kind of hidden. There's a staircase, and there's one, and that's going to be one of my problem areas. There's two, and this is working the perspective. And I'm seeing the top rungs. There's 3, 4. I may not end up with the right number, but no one knows. No one's going to count. No one's is there. So if 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm probably a little bit off, but I'm not terribly off. Then it goes up and gets narrower and narrower and narrow. I'm not as far off as I thought I was, truthfully. Okay. Neighbor's dog. You hear that? It's interesting how when you paint, particularly on location, when you guys paint on location, there's all kinds of weird noises. We were not far from Highway 89, and so we got a lot of traffic noise while we were painting on location. And so you're getting the ambient noise of Max, our next door neighbor's dog. It's not even our dog.
So Chuck had a question. With the water-soluble oils, water is basically like chirp, right?
Say that again?
With water-soluble oils,
yes.
Water is basically like chirp. Do you use other mediums with it to change the
absolutely.
thickness?
I'll tell you why. Great question. What I have found, and this is regular oils, by the way, but what I found in using water-soluble oils is the terp thins it much more rapidly than just gradating it down. The terp thins it much more rapidly than in regular oils. And so it'll turn it into more of a watercolor kind of an effect. And so what I've found, and I was kind of told this, so I shouldn't just make it sound like I was the genius that found it, and that is that they make water-soluble mediums. Actually, I understand, I have never used it. They make a water-soluble liquid. They make a water-soluble oil, which I have used, and it works great. So I tend to use more of that than I do the water, and the water becomes more of a cleanup agent. So I use the water more for cleanup. But if you want to put a big wash area down, it works well. So it I guess that what I'm trying to say is it thins your paint a little bit more rapidly than, say, Turp. Turp thins your paint pretty rapidly too. And the water soluble, the biggest advantage I think in the water soluble is cleanup. It's just so easy to clean up. Okay, I'm just kind of blocking in where I think shadows belong here. So we're getting the feel of this area here. Now let's go for some more darks. Boy, I'm using up a lot of my dark color. I think I'm going to probably need more. So here's a little bit of the green and brown together. And I'm going to throw a little bit of Turp into it because I could feel the paint was stiff. That's something, truthfully, you guys, that I believe is one of the most difficult things to kind of figure out. Paint consistency. At what time during your painting do you want your paint to be a specific consistency? For myself, that was one of the most difficult things I had to deal with as an artist. This is going to come way over. It took me quite a while. I was either too thin or too thick, too dry. And now as soon as I put one mark down, I can feel whether that paint feels too thick. And if I'm standing behind somebody and watching them, I can advise them. But if you're left on your own, it's just something you have to begin to get a feel for as to what's the best way, the best feeling that you can kind of come up with for that paint. In this case, I'm using a lot of paint, by the way. I've used up 2/3 of my green already, the sap green that I laid out. It's okay, just lay out more. This my water soluble oil lid keeps shutting on me, so I'm going to try and. There it goes. Now that's water soluble, and what it does, it just lays down faster. It's not as I like my I'm just more used to my safflower, but this works fine.
I have some downstairs if you want me to get it.
Nah.
In my bag.
So Anna's got it hidden. She's got a whole hidden stash.
Well, it's not hidden. I didn't unpack it yet.
Yeah, we got back 2 nights ago from our jaunt up in the Sierras, and I don't know, weather-wise, we had a little smoke the first day, a little bit the second day, and then it was just gorgeous. Really, the last 3 days when we switched over and painted along the river, it was great. It was just wonderful. The weather was about 75 degrees, so it wasn't too hot. And it was just very clear. And there were rafters coming by right and left on the river. It was really fun. I would absolutely do it again. It's such a great location. There's so many good spots to paint there too. Right along the river. A couple of our people jumped in the river, which is great. I didn't. Okay, now I'm going to do that big door. And I'm going to make it a little bit more on the browns. So let's pick up a little more asphalt. Man, I can't believe it's the scale, how fast I'm running through this paint. I want a little bit more red in it. And it looks to darken a little bit as it goes in. So I had a little bit more blue right in here. I think that's straight. I gotta stand back. No, it's not a bad abstract. at this point, which is I'm going to darken it as it goes down. So I added just blue to that same color. This is why you use these brushes. You can get a lot of paint down quickly, a lot of coverage. Okay. And the ground plane at that point is still in shadow. So it's not as dark, but it's still kind of in that range. A little cooler. And it helps define okay. Anyway, this should continue over, and it's pretty close. There's a wild guess on my part, but luckily it's relatively correct. So let's block in a few of these background points. One of them that I want to let's see, one of them, boy, I tightened that too. Nice, just so I can see what I'm looking at. We're going to take white. I'm going to mix it into the puddle of mud I already have mixed up there because it's not a bright color. Add a little blue to it because I see it go a little cooler. And maybe a little bit of pink. And let's try that. Pretty close. Maybe a little more pink. Right there. That's the shadow. Now, you got to keep in mind, I am painting on a toned canvas. So I am still that far away from white. See? It's something to keep in mind. If you're painting on a darker tone canvas, then you're even further away from white. So as I've mentioned many times, I prefer painting on kind of a lighter neutral canvas. I do know individuals that like to paint on colors. And it goes down to like a lot of things, whatever works for you. I just feel more comfortable on that. Now, as there's a cast shadow from the awning, and I'm going to mess that white up right now. It's cooler and it's darker than this, which is kind of in a raking light. So this gets to be more like that. And because it's architecture, you want that nice cube, that edge, where with foliage and other things, you definitely don't want that kind of an edge. And I got to move this over again just a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. So I'm going to get that dark. I didn't even see that. What happens when I reposition this? Now that perspective is somewhat important. So I want it goes that way. I just held my brush up to it. What I do to accurately portray this perspective in a very quick fashion is I will take my brush and I will almost lay it right there. And so that's the angle that I want. So that's the angle that I want. And I just paint it right down on that angle. Value is pretty dark. So it's basically a dark neutral. And there's a little bit of dark back in here. This is going to be so unimportant that as long as I have nice marks, it'll probably work. All right. Important fact, nice marks.
I'm Lena Abels from New York.
Sorry about that.
A little darker and warmer as it moves over. All right. Now we're going to put the light part of that building in. I'm setting up because I really want to get into this, but I got to get this other stuff set up here. There also is a shadow. I just noticed it going down. I'm not sure what it's coming from, but I like the way it breaks the space up. And it's coming from here right on down. Right on down. All right. Nice little breakup of space. So you can, shadows work well as design elements. Really, really well. They feel nice. Let's get the light on that building now. And white, Naples yellow. Naples yellow because it's quite warm. White because it's quite light. Put a little medium into it. I've got my solvent for each L here so I can use that when I need it. Boy, that paint's pretty stiff. But let's paint that in. And that. And a little bit of light back here. And there's a little shadow breaking up that space, which I will do later. It looks like there's a little piece of light happening right about in here.
You're using asphaltum, right?
What?
You're using
Yes,
asphaltum.
the brown, the dark I'm using is asphaltum because I knew I was going to need a lot of dark. And a lot of light right about in there. Okay, and we want to get that one area, this area right here, breaking that. All right, that feels okay. I can actually take, this is the brush, the number 8 rosemary that I was sketching with, and I can, so I've only used these 2 brushes, but I can actually take this and kind of paint a little bit of that shadow that kind of happens back in there. Nice little touch. And there is a darker window. I might as well get that in there. I don't have to go back to it. Dark blue, dark brown, asphaltum, and it's in the shadow. It sits, looks like it sits about here, down to about here. And that's all I'm going to do. Then there's a little, oh, cool. I love these little breakup of spaces. This little area right here. Nice, these little abstract breakup of spaces. It just takes it from being something that is too undefined, too much of just a big empty shape. Get that window down a little further because I didn't bring it down far enough. I just noticed it now. I want to see where I'm at here. Okay, I'm about 30, a little behind of where I'd like to be. I'm about 30 minutes into it. All right. And in case you wonder where I'd like to be, I'd like to have almost all of this laid in with 45 minutes. So hopefully I'll be close to that. That only gives me 15 minutes to lay in the rest. And the reason I'm saying that is I want to have enough time to really get in there and do whatever refinement is necessary. So a little piece of light right there. And this tends to be a little whiter. All the way down here. Okay, I don't want to dwell on that for too long. I do want to get this column in. There's 2 sides to the column. One side is cooler and darker, and the other side gets more ambient light. This is the cooler, darker side. And so I've got a lot more blue mixed into that color. Blue and brown, basically. That's not dark enough. I added some white. I added too much. I've got to keep it in the blue side. Let's try that. No, bluer. It's got to there. That feels better. It's got to stay cool. I'm going to bring it here. You can see as I go down the page, I start to lose the paint, which means I don't have enough paint on the brush. And then at this point, you get the jog in it, and it jogs about here. And then comes down about here. And then goes back. So we're just going to get that in there very quickly. Whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, we'll make that decision later as to whether it's exactly right or wrong. And usually that would happen when I stand back. Then I'm able to see. And a painting this large, so this is 2436, I can only see a portion of the painting at the time. If, for example, I can see about that much, which means I have to stand back to see how the paint that I paint up here relates to the paint that I paint down there. It's the only way you can do it. There are reducing glasses. I've never found those helpful for me, although I do know people that use them and like them. If you're in a confined space, I tend to think that that's one way of dealing with that, the reducing glass, which is like the opposite of a magnifying glass. Okay. Now, the other side tends to be warmer. So I took the same color, I added a little bit of white and a little bit of ochre to it. And I'm gonna, maybe a hint of a warm pink or something to throw it, or a red, just to throw it in there. So now that's a little too much. Let's throw a little bit more of the asphaltum back into that, and let's try it again. It should be lighter than this color. Oh, I got it lighter and I got it warmer. That's truthfully what I was looking for. Lighter and warmer. And we're going to go down like I did before, but try and go straight down. Because it's architecture. Architecture's firm. I know I've mentioned that. One of the characteristics that you want to paint when you paint architecture is firmness. My value is pretty good there. It's a little bit dark, I think, as it moves over to the side. So I just added a little bit more of a Naples yellow into it. And we'll just, I want to get that whole thing a little bit more, it lightens. So I threw Naples yellow and more ochre into the same color. Too much. Raw sienna is one of those colors that's still warm enough. Too warm. Threw more blue into it, feels better. Again, you got to make quick decisions. Just like when you're painting on location. If you're painting alla prima in one session, if you're going to do what we did and paint 2 to 3 mornings and 2 to 3 afternoons in the same, then you can be a little bit more careful. I want that jog to be right about there. Okay, so we've pretty much got this side of this column in, I think. So I'd rather overpaint a little too much into this. Right there. And I should theoretically take this side, which is a little darker, a little warmer, or it's not necessarily warmer. It's actually pretty close, but by the time it gets up to the top, it tends to cool off as it goes down. So we've got kind of this worked out. Notice I say kind of. And a little bit more at the top. I'm trying to set this up so that as I move into the bougainvillea, which is our star, we have one star in this piece. It's pretty, it's this. This is our, so everything else can be indicated a little bit understated. But we want that to really come off. Now there's a little bit of an awning. I don't know if I'm even going to put that up there. I kind of don't like that. It interrupts the flow a little bit. There's some beautiful lines happening in here and a couple here. These look like part of the vines. I don't know if it is, but I'm going to take it and we're going to go one there. It's not dark enough. I'll do that later. What I want to do right now is start in on these vines. You know what? I take that back. I've got, if in the next 5 minutes I can lay those stairs in, I'll feel more comfortable. So that's what I'm going to do. Very similar to this color. And I'm not going to paint the pattern. In case you guys are wondering, they've got this really cool, there's these nice tiles, pattern tiles, Italian pattern tiles. And I'm not going to put them in. I just don't have the time. If I was painting on location, I might, if I had the time.
Put them in later?
Huh?
Can you put them in later?
I could.
Because they're so pretty.
But you have to go with what you think you can accomplish. And to me, that's not as important as getting the risers of the stairs reading. And it looks like each time it goes up a little bit, it lightens. So I'm lightening it a little bit each time. Adding a touch of ochre to it as I lighten it. And it's interesting. I've got to get it. I have to clean this edge up later because I'm messing it up. It's probably I just painted it in too soon. You can see them getting lighter and a little bit more yellow, into them. So as I'm moving up, I'm adding just a little bit more Naples yellow light to them. So there's our stairs. That looks about right, okay? And then we've got the risers on top. I'm gonna switch over to this brush and I'm gonna go a little darker. The risers have two tones on them. The front tone is a little darker. The top tone is a little lighter and cooler.
What brush is that?
It's a rosemary. It's a number 8 rosemary filbert. And I don't think that's dark enough. Yeah, it's not. So the asphaltum, God, I've got to lay more asphaltum out, more green out, more blue out. It's amazing how much paint used. So I've got a lot of other tones mixed in it. There's the front of the riser, front of that one. You know, I'm being too careful. I've got to paint right into that wall. Goes up here. It's a little, and each one gets a little narrower because they're a little further back. Way off in the drawing on that one. And they get a little warmer and lighter. I'm going to and for that, I've added in the raw sienna, and I'm going to change that to here. And I'm going to change that to here. And that to there. And then maybe one more. So that gives us the front of the risers. Now we're going to paint the top of the risers. And we start to have light as we get up about in here. We start to get light on them. But the top of the riser is a little bit cooler and a little bit lighter than the front, which means probably maybe a little more raw sienna into that color, probably about here. It feels okay. It's a little too close to the tile on the step right now. Still a little too close, but right now I'm just going to keep moving. And then we get back where they're in shadow again. Oops, messed up. Got too much paint on this brush. Darker, darker. The bottom of that riser. Okay, at least I've got them knocked in there. Now I'm going to hit this tone, and then we're going to start into the bougainvillea because I think I've got enough of everything kind of blocked in where I can actually work in the bougainvillea and still go back and fix some of these areas. But I do need to get this area, kind of the light patterning that's happening on that. So let's get that in there. Again, Naples and white. Same color that I used up in here. I'm using right here. Why? Look at the sun. Hitting there, hitting there, hitting here. So it's hitting in those 3 areas so that there's going to be a relative consistency to that. One of the areas is right here, and it's going to happen there. You have to be really delicate with the way you put that brush down because you're just going to deposit paint. So all I want to do is deposit it right now. Okay, I'm going to leave it alone. It's not exactly what I want, but it's close. Okay, leave it alone. Same color. Up here, break into that a little bit. Want a nice firm edge there, because it's a cast shadow. Cast shadows will often have a much more of a firm edge than a form shadow. Form shadows could be hard and they could be soft, depending on the form it's depicting. Let's bring it down. Let's get a nice consistency with that edge. So it comes, right now it's all over the place. We want it about there. Put it down, trust yourself, and cross your fingers. About here. So I need more of shadow than I can see, but I knew I was going to be going back and forth on those shadows. And then we get some breaking on the top plane, which is right here. So this is the top plane of that, I guess for lack of a better word, we could call it a banister. It's not, it's the kind of the side plane of the staircase. And we'll break it. And then the light breaks all through here, all kind of interesting tones right there, there. Use a brush too big when you do this. Don't pick. You go back and fix it, but don't pick at it. Don't try and make it good, but don't try and get the perfection of that shape in that very first stroke. You're just not going to do it. It's going to take a few variations to get that. Sometimes I'm stroking up, sometimes I'm stroking across. It depends upon what I see. And I'm reading exactly what's going on. Here we get a nice big break. You get a lot more break up a space. The shape tends to come down about here. So we're being really indicative, for lack of a better word, with this area. Whoops, messed that up. Take a clean brush, kind of a mucky color that I got in here somewhere, wrong color, and fix it. Kind of messed up that edge, that's why I did that. You got to be bold enough that not be afraid to mess things up. Give yourself permission to be wrong. So we're painting the light, just the feeling of that light, as accurate as I can in an abbreviated fashion. I've got to keep my eye on the time. I'm just about where I want to be in terms of getting into the bougainvillea. Just about there. Probably going to be about 5 minutes off of where I'd like to be. I'm not saying anything, it's because I'm actually thinking. Sometimes when I think, I don't actually talk, which I guess means when I'm talking, I'm not thinking. Just concentrating, trying to make it as accurate as I can and still keep the spontaneity of it, because I think that's important. That's starting to feel correct. I know there was one spot that I commented on, and I'm going to see if I can fix that right now. It's right about in here. That looks pretty close to the color I want. And basically what I want to do is just kind of come in and keep my paint wet enough, because I'm going to paint into wet paint there. And pull a couple of these little shadows up and give them a little bit more interest and character, which means I need to kind of solidify this area down in here, bring a stroke or two off of it. I just stood back for a second and it scared me. It isn't quite what I want, but it's getting there. Let's put it that way. I just wanted to get there faster. Which is not unusual. Don't we all? You know, you guys remember those, the Wide World of Disney, and you watch a paintbrush come across and go, bring, and it just paints the whole damn thing. That's kind of what would be nice if we could do that, huh? Okay. Not gonna do a lot more right now. I can see things I could do. I could probably work on these shadows. You know, something like this, if you're in the studio, I'd probably work on that shadow and then go back and then work on it some more and work on some other areas and work on the shadow some more. And so, because every time you look back at it, you'll see other things. Oh, I wish I would have done that. So you do it. Oh, I wish I would have done that. There we go. So we've got the shadow in. We've got the light in the shadow. We want it coming from right about there. So I'm going to straighten that out just a little bit more. Okay, let's start to get into the, oh, you know what? Sorry, one more thing. I added a little bit of ochre to it, and we're going to hit a little bit of light on that ground plane. Just throw a little more ochre into the paint. You see me painting strokes that are this way, and it's basically because of the way that the light is coming in. Oh, looks like it comes over about there. I'm not going to do any more. I'm just going to leave that. It's not as important as other areas. Let's put a couple of vines in. Let's start with this one over here. A little bit of raw sienna into that color. I'm still working on the same pot, so I really have not mixed up new colors. It's just one big smudge pot right now. And I'm gonna, oh, that's pretty good, son of a gun. I'm not used to being that accurate on my first try. And picking up some of those other colors underneath, which is actually helping, because I need that edge to be just a tad darker. So I don't want to dwell too long on it because it's not going to be as important, but I do need to define it a little bit more, which means I need to either go dark behind it, or it looks like I would go dark on it just looking at it. I got to pick up more paint. A little bit. Let's throw some blue into that. I don't care if it goes a little red or a little blue here. It's just adds interest to the vine. That's that. Okay, let's move to this vine. All right, and that's going to go here. And it's going to work its way up into the bougainvillea itself, right there. Maybe a little bit lighter. It's going to disappear. And then it's going to come down there, down here. I'm gonna have to lay out some more paint in a second, you guys. There. Thicker. A little thicker. It's a little warmer than I want it, but it's not, the value's right, let's put it that way. So it's a little warmer, but if I'm gonna, I don't mind if the color's off if I get the value correct, particularly on quicker paintings. On longer paintings, you can spend forever and really adjust those colors. On a quicker painting, if you can get that value right, sometimes, even though the color may be a little off, I want to bring it over here. Okay, that's approximately working the way I want it to. I added a little bit more blue to that color. So I got it a little bit darker. I just want it to stand out against this. Okay, I got a little more color. I'm out.
What are you looking for?
Yeah, I'll get it. I've got them right here. That's about right, you know? So very quickly, asphaltum, to lay that out a little bit more. I use it all up already. It's because I usually, you know, I've been painting on these 18 by 24s, and I'm used to laying out paint for that. And this is double 18 by 24. So in essence, if I'm using all the paint on an 18 by 24, I probably should be using that much paint, double that amount of paint, excuse me, on a 24 or 36 by 24. So I got it laid out. I still may not have enough, but big difference. I can see right now. I can go in and add a little bit of darker accents here and there. And it's got this beautiful little branch coming up here, working its way this way and joining right about there. And I don't like things to be too straight because in general, they're vines and they turn and twist. So you want a little bit of that character in your painting there. And then there's this vine works its way all the way up here. So we've got, things are set up and I'm about 5 minutes behind where I really would like to be. But I think I can still get the whole darn thing working. I'm going to make a nice dark pot here so I can always go back to it with the green and the brown and go back into areas like this. And I'm going to really try and use this brush a lot to make some of these characteristics. I'm there and here, down, push, pull, push, use your brush. Again, the brush does the work. You control the brush, but the brush does the work. If you try and over control the brush, it shows. Okay, let's start to get some of the color into that bougainvillea because everything else is kind of set up. I don't like the flatness of this, and we can deal with that later. Take some raw sienna into it. Here, I just said later. I'm doing it now, but what the heck? You get the idea. Okay. Take that brush, clean it off as much as I can, and let's start with the colors. First color we're going to start with is, I'm going to take this color and white. It's a lot of, say, alizarin white. I want it to stand, I don't want to go to my brightest brights yet. Keep that in mind. I'm building, just like we do always, building up to the brightest bright. But this will be pretty bright, I think. It's a little bit more red than I want, but unfortunately, that's where it's going to end up. Because I don't have that exact color, but let's start to get some of those planes in up here. I want to be able to go back on top of this later with brighter lights. This has got a lot of layers, you guys. So it's one of those things, the more time that you have to deal with this, the more layers and the more fun and believable you can make this. There's some beautiful lights right in here. Twisting and pushing that brush a lot of different ways so that I'm not painting the same stroke over and over and over again. Very important. It can really get monotonous if you just start doing the same old stroke constantly. See some big ones, some small ones. You push, you pull. Later on, if you find out, well, that's too big and too bold, then you break it down. But do not be too timid at this point, particularly on this first lay-in. This is the first pass, so to speak. Ideally, you would have 20 or 30 passes to really achieve what you want to achieve with all this. In this case, we might get 3. it's starting to work. I need some darks up in here to make that work. I can see right now. But, you know, I could sit and worry about that right now and never get the whole thing laid in. So my whole thing right now is let's get this whole thing going. I do want to break this line. So I want even more so than it shows there. So we're going to right down in this region. We're going to take and break that line. This brush is doing the job for me in a quick painting. If I were doing a long painting, I might be using a different brush. But I will get a more spontaneous, probably better effect if I use this brush right now. And I still have to paint some of the shadows in, some of it as it gets darker. And as I do that, I'm probably going to need more of the solvent-free gel. Goes behind. There's a beam there. I didn't want to paint that beam in too early because I knew I was going to be doing this, painting a lot of the color in. And if the color sneaks its way behind that, like down in here.
Do you remember what town that was in?
This is in a town called Capolaveri. Yeah, on Elba. And it is it's on the top of the mountain. It's really kind of neat. It's not down in the water. Really, really neat town with a lot of little areas that you can kind of, I want to go a little darker. So I'm right next to it. I'm mixing a little bit of a darker version of that same color with, and I've basically added just some more blue into it. That's how I got it darker. And it's a little too dark, so I add a little, just a touch of white to it. There, that's, well, I went, just a touch didn't do it. Let's try this. Okay, that's better. Because we want to paint some of that. It's not all lit. Some of it is back in shadow. So the shadow I'm using ultramarine, a little alizarin, and white. So you can see almost, you see color on the tip, color down below. That's because I'm painting quickly and I'm not changing brushes like I might. So we've got a lot of it back in shadow, back in there, really kind of nice. Let's paint that back in shadow. Let's start to work. I just stood back for a second. That's how come I could kind of tell. Again, very difficult to try and judge how everything's working when you're up this close on a painting this large. Okay, a lot of interesting shadowy color here, up here. Right up in here. I'm just looking to see where I see big shadow areas. If the paint felt a little dry, so I added some a little terp to it. Felt a little dry and sticky. When I say dry, I mean I'm having to work too hard to put the paint down. I want it to go down with a very gentle, easy stroke, as opposed to really me having to power it down. Up in here, there's a lot of shadow. That's shadow in here. Shadow, shadow. It's bougainvillea in shadow. So I'm basically, so far I've used two colors along with the initial lay-in color that I used. Because I'm picking up a lot of the color, every so often I have to go back and remix. So I've got a big area here. I want to get this whole thing painted. If I need to relight things, I will. But I've got to get the coverage right now. That's the important part. Otherwise, I don't have anything to paint on. So we get a lot of, oh boy, look at that little beautiful shadowy color right back in here. Really, you can almost not even see it. So that's how you kind of want to paint it, where you almost don't, the values are so close together that you almost don't see it. Boy, I see a lot of it right down in here, and really right in here is where you really see it, where it comes back in. Whoops, a little snuck in a little white that I didn't want. There we go. I knew I was going to be using a lot of red. A lot of the, that's why I laid out some additional reds, because I figured I was going to need them. More reds in shadow. I'd rather, if I was smart, I probably would have painted all the shadow of this stuff first. Instead of popping in all those lights. Although, you know, it's not that that's a waste of time. It's starting to work, but I see a lot more up in here. I'm getting a glare, so it's really hard for me to see. I hope you guys can see this. I can't. I just know there's shadow up there. I just got to get it in. Some greens peeking through. That's going to be kind of fun because I'm going to want to sneak that back in. Now, I'm going to go back to the lighter color, which is right here. A little pink mixed into it. And I think I'm close to where I want to be. I don't want, again, I don't want my brightest colors yet, or my lightest colors, I should say. These are brights, but they're not as light as it will get. Comes down here, right in here, there. It's starting to come together. I had to stand back to look at it a second just then because I couldn't tell, truthfully. More white, more red. And I'm using those colors up like it. I gotta lay more color out again. A little oil. This is a little brighter. I'm going to grab a smaller one of these just so I don't have to, I want to keep one with light and one so I can kind of come back in when I need to with the shadow. It's going to help so that if I want to come back in and hit a little bit more, then I can switch over. That's a little lighter than I wanted. And we'll hit and if I was smart, I'd have a green one too, because I want all three of those colors. Now there's a lot of light right here. So what you do is you're laying the basic form in as if it's in shadow, and then we're going back and we're adding light on it. And the light is where most of the color is before you get to your brightest lights. Your brightest lights tend to have a lot more white in them. And so the color is not as strong. I'm going to add a little bit more color red to my palette because I'm ripping through it like you wouldn't believe. Because it's thick. This paint is not real thin right now. It's quite, and it's got to get thicker because I'm going to end up probably using a knife right at the end. Okay. So let's keep going with that. I see I'm looking at areas. And my eye is moving from one area to another area. A little light right there. A little light sneaks down in here. Not much, little piece. Falls down here, up here. I actually painted one of these on location at this town, at another spot. And it was just a heck of a lot of fun and it was a lot smaller. It was like 12 by 16. So, and I was actually pleased with the outcome. And so it made me want to try more of them. And I'll sweep here. Again, it's very important that you use that brush and you make different kinds of marks. Otherwise, it's like you dabbed everywhere. Sometimes it's going to be a stroke. Sometimes it's going to be a push. Sometimes it's going to be a pull.
Are those the gesso brushes you're using?
These are the gesso brushes, and I'm using them because I need to put a lot of paint down. And so I need a brush. You know, I use my rosemaries when I want more accuracy. Like when I do portraits or when I do smaller landscapes, when I do bigger pieces like this, and I'm painting again, kind of to a degree against the clock, I will tend to use more of these brushes because I can lay more paint down. I'm just going to talk to Rosemary Brushes about developing a few of these. They may even have some that I'm not aware of. They're such good brushes in general.
Chuck Todd wants to know, in a quick painting like this, how much of decision on editing are based on time versus editing decisions based on composition or storytelling? They kind of all factor in, probably.
They all factor in. The main thing is your concept of what you're trying to do, and editing probably plays the biggest factor in this. Storytelling, it's hard to say because I don't necessarily consider this painting a storytelling type painting, other than the fact that you're painting it on location and it is what it is. It's not done painting it like I'm doing a narrative piece. If I wanted a person coming down the stairs, different story. But time plays an immense role, if not the most, particularly in a painting at this scale. Right now, I'm trying to get the coverage and the effect. So as I squint my eye at it now, I can see that it's beginning to take the form that I want it to take. But I'm way behind where I think I should be.
What are the reds you're using, by the way?
I am using a red madder. I'm using alizarin crimson, and I don't even know what this other one is called. It's a if I had a phthalo red rose, that's what I would be using right now. I don't have one. I don't use it very often. I kind of keep it in my arsenal, and I'm out of it. But I would be using that because it's a great color for this. I'm going to step back for a second because I can't tell how it's looking. It's shaping up. It's not. I need brights now. Little pieces of light here and there I can see. Just a little sneak it in.
What was the red you mentioned you would have used?
What?
The red you mentioned you would have used if you had it?
Phthalo red rose, which is a really nice color for hitting this kind of fuchsia color, for lack of a better word. All right, we got to hit some of this down in here. Okay, here we want to break it over into that doorway even more than, because I'm making it a little bit bigger and bolder, but I do need to get the shadows in too. So I can't just deal with one. And then I need time to get the green and then time to get the bright lights. And so I'm probably going to run over a little bit today, you guys, just because of due to scale. So, because we got about 25 minutes, it looks like to me, and hopefully I can get the majority of it done in the 25. I just need time to layer more. Okay, I'm gonna hold those brushes for a second, and I'm gonna do a couple of searches here with my smaller brush. I'm gonna get that line in. I'm gonna take my Egbert, big Egbert here, with green and brown, because I don't want it to be acidy green, but I want it to be very dark. And I want to begin to hit some of those leaves in with this big filbert or Egbert.
Do you know what brand the phthalo red rose is?
I know Winsor Newton makes it. I don't know who else. It's real. I went looking one time because I was doing these, and I went looking for, man, did I have a hard time finding a color that would do. There's our magentas out there that will work nicely. And I think Gamblin makes a really nice magenta, which I probably should buy.
What brush are you using?
This is it's not a rosemary, but I have my rosemary, just didn't grab it, which is a better brush. It's a long bristled filbert or an egbert, depending on where you buy it. I like the name egbert just because it sounds like a ventriloquist dummy. And that's how I first learned about these things years ago. They're very flimsy and you can get kind of interesting effects out of them. It's just one of those things that I don't want to spend a lot of time on. So I'm trying to, and I'm painting on so much wet paint because I want to paint as it overlaps this, and then as it comes in from behind, and it breaks over into that white wall, which I kind of like. Get a couple leaves hanging down, a couple of them going up. Well, this is like a real type of impressionist painting. It's so free and loose. Parts of that I like. I like to bring in that control, which is pretty much what I'm doing. You know, I've talked very often about using energy and using control. Well, you saw the energy. I've got to bring enough control to it, in my opinion, to get the whole thing to make sense and feel complete. And some of it are edges, these little edge things that I'm doing, like right here. There's some nice, beautiful, but we've got to get those, a feeling of the leaf, feeling of that leaf. A little bit up in here, a little bit up in here. Some vine right in here. Little greenery up as it kind of dances up in here. A little bit over in here. More greenery back there. Dark. A lot of dark kind of happening back. That color's off, but it's not, it's basically the color of the canvas. So it's not the appropriate color that I would like, but if I don't have time, I may have to live with it. That's starting, I got to stand back and blur my eye. I can see some spots that need a little bit more work, like this. A little here, a little bit back in the shadows. A little more color right there. This could fall back in the shadow. I can just take the paint and push it right back into the shadows. One of the nice things about having that nice dark down there, you can kind of push and pull some of these colors back, like down in here. Falls in shadow. Okay. I want to be able to put light on the steps too, so I want to give myself enough time for that. There's also light on this vine. Overlapping really helps. So by overlapping, and I see it, so I'm not actually inventing it. I literally see the overlapping of the, like in here, just even pulling a leaf down here and there just tends to help immensely. Looks like there's a pole here, whether I put it in or not, almost isn't important. There's a little bit of a couple of things that happen in there. If I wanted, I could put some light on the door. I'm not going to. I'm just looking to see if I see any darks that I need to put in. And then there's some cool little light greens that happen. You see them? They really add a lot. So I clean that brush off pretty good. I can take some white and get a nice green. Really nice. I didn't put a good yellow out, but I think I can get it with this Cad Yellow Deep. I think I can get the yellow I'm after. The paint's got to be nice and wet, and then you're going to hit some of those little greens, little touches. Now, actually, let me get some yellow.
We want
Some yellow. I know I have some handy. I'm just not getting the brightness that I want. I'm mixing a little medium into it. And we're getting a little light. Well, that's not too bad. There. A little bit of this sneaking up, kind of down behind some of these areas. So I'm picking up a lot of red when I do that, so I have to be kind of careful. There, a little bit there. A little bit up in here. I've got a big tube of yellow handy somewhere. There, I got a yellow right here.
How about this one?
Wow, just squeeze it out. Yeah, that's good. I just squeezed it. Okay,
Okay.
I can get a little bit better green now, is all, with the yellow. Didn't think I was going to need it because I really didn't pay attention, but I just spotted it as we started into this part of it. So there's a little bit better yellow. And that all the difference is I'm using a good yellow, like a cad yellow, in that to mix the green. And it's giving it a little bit more life. So a little bit of it up in here, a little bit there, a little bit like right, looks like it's sneaking through right in there. Gotta be careful not to pick this stuff. It's really easy to get picky because they're little tiny spots of it. They're not big areas of it. So we get a little bit there, a little bit there. If we overdo it, no problem. Wipe it out. Little piece of it sneaking out right about here. A little bit down in here. Not much. You don't want to put it everywhere. You gotta have enough in to make sense. Now I'm going to add some light on the bougainvillea because I'm not going to have much time to go much further. So I'm going to take a lot more white, a lot of the pink, a lot of the beautiful reds, mix them together, come up with a much lighter color. I'm going to mix some medium into it. Some of this solvent-free gel. Let's see what this looks like. Whoa, there we go. So we're adding the lights, the lighter lights. I've added, I got the basic light in. Now I'm making it sing, so to speak, bringing more life to it. And it's just got more white in it and a little bit red mixed in with that white. All right, I'm going to step back for just a second. It's probably a little lighter than I want. So I am going to add a little bit more of my red I have right here. Back. And I never mind getting a different red every now and then. I mean, it's one of those things that I think it's better than if you just paint with the same kind of red everywhere. Little piece. Oh, that's nice. I like that the way it kind of sat on there. It's pretty thick paint right now, you guys, just so you know. Pretty darn thick. But the light's coming from here. Now I can tell because of the way other planes are being lit. So I'm trying to find almost the direction of these clumps that is facing more directly to the light. And that's what I'm hitting. I see a little bit of it, and some of it I'm inventing. I see it right in here. Right here, it kind of jumbles into that. And I can push it right back into the color that I already have there. Yeah, it's starting to work, I think. I just stood back. It would really work if I had about another hour and a half on it. And I could really build even more different reds, more different variations. And I might build shadows back deeper, and I might pull some of the lights out more. Now I'm just spotting. I'm just looking to see where I see the brighter lights. It's really hard to always distinguish that. But if I stand back and squint, it's a lot easier. Like right in here, I can see it quite a bit. this is one of these things where I really like to go in really as I approach total completion, because I do want to get lights on the steps because it really needs it. But I take a knife with paint like that on it and just start to move it. And let the tactile character of the paint add something to the portrayal of this bougainvillea that I'm getting. I won't do a lot of it. I'm just showing you that basically that's what I would probably be doing more towards the end. Like these get really flat out here. I want to pull a little bit of light right there and right in here so it doesn't look quite as flat. And maybe down in here I can see, I'll just grab the brush again and we'll just put a little bit of light right there. I can see a little bit there. Not much in the shadow. Right here I see a little more. And it kind of dances its way out and almost just kind of hits here and there, and right about maybe in here get a little bit more. Okay, let's get some light on the stairs. So we'll start to refine those out a little bit more, make some sense out of it, so to speak. I still have my dark, so if I need to, I can take that dark green and push some of the darks back if I don't feel they're dark enough, which kind of bothers me. I didn't have it quite where I wanted. I do need to get a couple of roof lines in. I do need to get a darker base down here on this guy. Oh, I like that. That's good.
So Renate would like you to talk a little bit more about brushes. She knows you use the gesso brush to get large areas in and the rosemary brushes. Are the rosemaries all bristle brushes? Or
yes. Yep. Rosemaries are all hog's bristle. Generally, they're the ivory. I tend to like that one the best, although I do try all their different brushes. But they're all bristles. They're very springy. They're not stiff bristles. As you can see, that's not that stiff. Okay, I just said I wanted to get I do that a lot. If you haven't noticed, I say, well, I want to get this, and then I forget about it and get something else. I see some of the reds that I need to pull back in here too. These are reds more or less in shadow.
I was just going to say, Renate, if you want to give us a call, we can talk you through the website for rosemary and give you some suggestions.
Okay. I kind of like that. It tends to work. Now there's also, there's light coming through on top of it. So this is the editing that you have to decide what you want to do. But I see a little light coming through, like right. So it almost looks like leaves, but it's not. There's light coming through. And then we've got the light on that. Let's get the stairs. I keep saying that. So let's go to the stairs. Naples in white. It's very much like the, and I'm going to bring a little bit of oil into it so I can get it to flow. Because the more you lay on wet paint, the more you have to be very. And some of them just have little flicks of light because what's happening is you're getting a little of that through the trees. So getting that, getting it right in here. Down one more, let's go. And then about two more is basically all we have. We have a lot of light right here. And it's dappled light. And a little bit right here. And a lot of times what you can do is you can look to where it is on the wall. Like right in here, I can bring up light. And that light that is hitting there is also hitting on the step. A little bit on the riser maybe here. Maybe you're getting just a little hint of light back there. And the other, there actually is a little bit now that I see it on almost all of them. Even down here there is on this one. As up the top, very interesting, because on the top of the riser up here, it's darker. And then this one also, but I've got that too low. So that's going to be like right in there. Now I can go back, and this is the thing I would be doing at the end. Fixing, defining the stairs just a little bit more, particularly that front plane of that stair, of that riser right here. And then I told you what I would be doing at the very end. It's not quite the very end. I've still got a few minutes, and like I said, I'm probably going to go over a little bit, but I'd probably clarify the edge of this wall a little bit more because I've messed it up with the stairs. So when you do that, you go back, clean it up, brush it all together so it kind of blends, come straight down, pick it up here. Now, I did mention at this point that and then there's a bump right here, goes out and helps define that pillar. Also, the thing I noticed it earlier on, there's a little light happening and hitting right on this. And I changed the shape of it, and not necessarily intentionally. I changed the accent, but it works. There's little pieces of light, not much, and I can add more on. And a little bit of that green quality light right at this point.
Oh, I wish we were there right now.
Yeah, so do I. This is a wonderful place, you guys. We've been to Elba because we fell in love with it. We went there one time and did a workshop there. Liked it so much, we actually went back and did a workshop the following year there. It's magical. It's an undiscovered, I believe, paradise in Tuscany. There, I think both times we were there, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not correct, I don't think we ran across one American.
Yeah, so don't go there. Just kidding.
It's spectacular, and it's an hour ferry ride.
Shh, don't tell everybody.
Okay, I won't tell.
Okay.
I didn't say that.
It's too beautiful.
It's really the last couple of times I think we went, I didn't even paint. We just went we liked it so much we went kind of for vacation. I'm going to grab this. I'm trying to find my other egg bird if I can, a small one. There we go. That'll work. I do want to put this beam in. Maybe we'll take the larger rosemary, and it's kind of a gray color, that beam, and it looks like it comes right about here. And it's going to overlap that. That works. And, time permitting, I can go back with my liner and the little stuff counters the big stuff. For example, we got a little twig coming right there, going right down into that area. I can add a second one in there if I want to. And then there's some greenery. We go back to that greenery color that's in white, and we hit a little bit of that in there. Just get a little bit of that overlap, a little brighter. So you can see, you can we could play on this forever. And then there's these beautiful, this is what I was grabbing this brush for. Number one, I started this, but I didn't get it very strong. And I don't know if they're vines or if they're, but it's just a nice spatial breakup there and there. And up above, we have lights. The lights tend to be a little on the cool side initially, and then as it comes into, so I just click on there. And then it goes brighter as it gets into the sun. So I can take that, bring it down and let it go brighter as it goes inside. Just those little breakups. The breakups of activity, and I know I've used that word many times. I really mean it. I mean, small activity countered by large masses really adds something to almost any painting. And that's what makes, to me, that's what makes a beautiful abstract painting, is the difference of breakup of space, along with color and value. I never want to diminish that, but it's that spatial breakup that compositionally adds so darn much. And you can see, I can see I did that, but I also wanted to do the other thing, and that is bring in some darks. If you can find those little, if you look for them, they're there all over the place. It's a matter of you taking the time and finding them. It's a beautiful little, wonderful accent to your painting if you can kind of find these little spots that add so much to it. And this feels dead. This, I'm off on the color. That's I'm not really way off in the value. I'm just off on the color. Tends to be, so I'm gonna see if I can smack that in there. We're just about at 90 right now. So I'll take it, I'll tell you what, I'll take another 5 minutes, hopefully not longer. I haven't stood back as much as I would like to see how it's working, but I will do that at the end and do a little additional work if I need it, as if I didn't. Of course I need it. This beautiful roof line comes in right there, and then we get little bits and pieces of light back right in there. I'm going to step back for a second. Holy smoke, it's actually almost working.
Holy smoke.
Like I said, everybody, this is new for me. So this is one of the nice things about doing these for you all is I'm doing them for me all too. I'm learning. Like I said, this is the first time I've tried a large, really large, to me this is large, for 90 minutes. This is actually one of my favorite sizes to work in terms of just painting in general. But in terms of trying something 90 minutes, it's
challenging.
Yeah, to say the least. It is challenging. I can go in here and fuss, but it's some beautiful stuff. I'm just starting to look more carefully. Beautiful little colors in there, right in here. So it's not quite as simple as I laid it in the first time. There's more going on, and all that kind of activity to me adds, I call it fun. It adds interest. It adds believability. There's another little light area coming right there. Now, go back to my colors here. Let's go back to the dark. Oh, there it is, the dark. Oh, that's the light. Yeah, that's the kind of in between. So it's not quite dark. It's not quite light. I'm just finding little things that I can add. So much fun.
Size was 3624, right?
Yeah. So again, you guys, this is what I've been doing pretty much most every week for you guys, this size. And I think part of it is I need to thank all these individuals that took my large scale workshop, because I don't mind doing this in a 2 or 3 session painting where you're maybe, you're working a total of maybe 7 to 9 hours on one of these, which really, to me, for studio painting, isn't long. For plein air painting, that's long, but you're doing it over more than one session. And the advantage is you can go look at it. Each time you look at it, you see it with fresh eyes. Kind of like what I was telling everybody, it's like an individual walking into the gallery and seeing your painting. You get to be you get a little bit of that experience yourself, because you've laid off it for 24 hours, 18 hours, whatever it is, and in the morning you work on a different painting, and then in the afternoon you come back and you work on this painting. So what that does is it gives you that opportunity to view your painting with fresh eyes, and so you have the opportunity to adjust, correct, and it really is one of these things that allows you to hopefully do a better piece. And then if you do have the time, add a little refinement. But one of the hardest things to do is to get people not to refine too soon. This is near what I would call refinement. But it's not as refined as if I were doing, a studio type, long studio painting. It's not that kind of refinement. It's refinement on a large study.
I think we've gone over.
Oh, I know we've gone over.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, I apologize I don't mean to go over, but I've learned that this scale makes it a little bit more difficult unless I pick something a little simpler to paint. Not that this is tremendously difficult, but it's not. There's a lot going on, and to give the character and believability to this piece, you really need to do it justice. And I hope I've done that. I hope you guys have gotten an idea as to how to paint. I'm looking for different subject matters every week. I was asked during my workshop from some of the people that have watched these if I would do one in acrylics one week, which I will. I will plan to do that since we're going to do another 15 weeks of this for sure. I will try and pick different subjects and do different things that appeal to me. And if it appeals to you, great. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But I always try and pick something that, number one, I think I can do. Wasn't sure about this one. And it's working okay. So I think we're going to call it close to quits, because for right now, I'll just bore the heck out of you if I just keep painting little dabs of color here and there. But you get the impression, hopefully, I hope you get the impression of how to handle something like this. It was fun. I may add a few more layers onto this after it dries. And hope you guys got a lot out of it. I got a lot of paint out of it. I went through paint like nobody's business, but keep painting, enjoy, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Nice. Really makes me want to be there. Ciao, ciao.